with a true business entity such as KCP&L, you sometimes have to make decisions very quickly in order to be able to stay ahead of the competition. I think that when it comes to strategic decisions, however, those fall into a different category. If you've got, we could say the Quick Trip. Well, Quick Trip didn't have electric service originally, and I'm sure that Quick Trip had the choice of being able to go with KCP&L or go with Gardner Energy, and they had to make a quick decision, pardon the pun, to get that electric service into to make a decision to provide some incentives to get that electric service sold to Quick Trip. I don't know if that's necessarily the case, but I'm just using that as a hypothetical. They should be able to have the ability to make those quick tactical decisions to be able to bring in additional business to the city.
If we're looking at further on the next page when we're talking about financial stewardship, audit and credit rating, I do think that accounting and finance is not really addressed in any meaningful way in 2296. That'd be agreed upon?
Mm-hmm. I agree.
That was essentially my question on this page was to Laura, and how do we fix that?
Well, I think let's start with the issue. The issue is there is no single point of conflict resolution. Whatever the conflict is, the amount of the transfers, the recommendations, because they're making decisions as you tasked them for the electric utility.
Mm-hmm.
But the electric utility impacts the general fund. And when you focus on an electric utility, you're not focusing limited resources on other funds.
Mm-hmm.
So when we have a, lack of a better term, disagreement, who reigns?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the perfect example is what ended up in the budget discussion this year.
Yeah.
You asked for something different. I work for this board. That board had already passed a budget. And in the end, my interpretation of this ordinance was the governing body sets this as a part of the budget process. But that wasn't very well received. So that's the problem. And how do we fix that? I'm sorry, but I actually am to really simply all accounting, all financial decisions should be coming through the finance department. However, a budget is a huge portion of that. So they create their own revenue estimates, they create their own expense estimates, but for the ones that I specifically said, transfers, debt service, those things I handle, but I don't have any part of that. And so if you put it all back through the finance department, now you're removing all their budget authority, and that I can't answer for you. That's your decision, because you can't do both. Really, truly, the auditors say, you keep talking about, are they, Attorney Hubbard said, they're not a separate entity. Per the auditors, as far as anything financial, the line of accountability lies with this governing body, no matter what you said in that ordinance, which is why that last bullet is, any audit finding will impact this city. And it won't matter that you passed an ordinance that said they do it. Because, and then, who's accountable? Cheryl? Me? Anybody else? That's not particularly appropriate to try to hold us accountable when you've given them in an ordinance the ability to make those decisions. That's the problem.
Is this the same, have you gotten the same advice from Burbidge Trahan and
It's from
Alec
Burbidge
Gibbs
and the
Allen?
new attorneys, or new auditors have all been rather perplexed by this. You can't even call it a quasi entity because simply put, your ordinance says in one spot they will function as a department of the city, and
Division.
they are merely a department as far as the budget goes. You approve the budget, you sign the budget, you're accountable no matter what this ordinance says.
And so if we give that authority to them effectively, and they make a mistake, where do we feel that impact?
It will impact
Right here.
you. It'll be
Here.
I know, but where specifically?
At the council.
Because
True, but I mean, what financial impact could we?
Well,
your credit rating,
Your credit
probably.
So higher rates.
As your rates, as stated, the city's credit rating, and of course, any impact to your credit rating will drive up costs. But you can't really, no matter what you put in this ordinance, you really can't give them accountability.
Right.
It's not possible, because it's, as long as there's still a department, still involved in your financials, your CAFR, your budget, even if they developed it, it's still signed off on by you.
Okay, so I got a couple of questions, okay? First of all, each department in the city is responsible for their own budget. They also have their own line
We all
item
do
within
that.
the chart
That
of
is
accounts.
very true.
That's right.
Correct? So you've got your own code, your own set of codes for each department of the city. Gardner Energy is no different from those departments
That's
as it currently stands. Okay?
That is correct.
If you were to carve out Gardner Energy into its own separate chart of accounts,
They
No,
have
it's-
their own separate chart of accounts.
but I'm talking about their own separate, entire separate financial system.
And their own software.
Their own
And
software.
their own accounting department.
Their own accounting
And
department.
their own finance director.
That's where I'm going.
Yeah, you're
Uh,
talking about a separate entity.
Now it's a separate entity, now they do have accountability because now they're managing their own books, they're managing their own
But
budgets.
now you need a legally separate entity.
And now you're talking about a public utility board that sits outside of the city's control.
And
That is correct.
And you're talking about a duplication
Of effort.
of effort, which
That's true.
it
They don't
becomes
have
no
the
longer,
efficiencies.
it
You're right.
no longer becomes feasible to produce supposedly lower rates.
Well, you're absolutely right, and they don't have the credit, they can't get the municipal credit ratings
Sure.
that they
And
would
they'll
like to
pay
have
income
for
tax or whatever.
capital acquisition, those kind of things.
And I'm not sure what happens to the assets, frankly, because I have no idea. You own the assets. So if you do a legally separate entity, I don't know what you do with that. That's beyond my ability.
This was an exercise in hypotheticals here. I want to know what is the range of possible, what's the realm of the possible here when it comes to how to manage finances, because it is a huge problem. It's a huge problem. It's been acknowledged both by us and also by the members of the UB. It is a big problem. We need to be able to come up with a solution that's going to be equitable for both parties.
And let me just state really quickly that the financial performance of the Electric Utility Board has been very good. I know, Larry, you went to the fiscal fitness thing that we went to in Ottawa, where they talked about establishing fund balance, the
Yep.
levels and
Mhm.
capital equipment replacement funds, and these are things that they did as part of their duties, but and that's something that whatever we end up doing, I don't want to see us shift away from some of those things. Hold on, please.
Sure.
Okay? So, I don't want to, well, this is disconcerting, and I'm not sure that it can be addressed suitably in an updated ordinance. I'd kind of like to circle back around to this, but Larry, I understand you've got a point you'd like to make.
Well, the point is, the changes that occurred after 2008 were a direct result of bringing in a director that made good choices. I mean, that's really what was missing before. The board really didn't do anything magical that we couldn't have done. I mean, if he would have come in here and presented to us and said, you guys do not have a reserves for replacements, you don't have sufficient inventory in the event a transformer blows, and I think he gave the example of Price Chopper. You know, they had a transformer, wherever that transformer is, in relation to the Price Chopper, if it had blown, basically it would take out that entire strip mall, as I recall. So that's as Steve said, that's a tactical decision that was made by a new person, a new set of eyes that came into the organization as a result of the board, possibly, but really we could have brought him in as well. I mean, before you had David Green managing everything, and maybe you could tell us what did we have here before? Bill Cross. I'm sorry.
The city administrator who was presiding over Mr. Green, who presided over all of it. That's what was here before.
But wasn't there a electric utility manager?
Yes, there was.
Okay, so you brought a director, which presumes that he has a higher skill level than a manager, and he made good tactical decisions. But that had nothing to do with the board. We would have made we would have made those same decisions. I got to believe. I see you shaking your head, Mark. What do you disagree with?
Hold on a second. I think I mentioned early, before we even started, I don't want to turn this into some kind of, urinating contest for distance and accuracy. between us